What would you say about the consistency of the times that you post?
I used to kind of worry about like what's the best time to post whatever, or whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatnot. And I think what I've come to learn is if it's good content, it doesn't matter. I had a conversation, I'm not going to mention names, and he said, well, I'm never going to be signed whilst this person is signed because they were like similar. And I'm like, you're literally just like stopping yourself.
Yeah.
It's this idea you made up in your head. You have to do something every day that helps increase your style. It can be something really small, even if it's just like working out, for example.
Yeah.
If you're doing something doing something every day, that's going to help. But like, you're in competition with everyone else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
it's true. Whether you think about it or not, it's happening.
now people are literally doing stuff to try and get like likes and validity and stuff. And like back then, we never did that. So it's from a psychological standpoint, it's just completely different.
Yeah.
But the comparison stuff, I've seen people just become crippled from that.
I know.
What's up, guys? Hey, I'm excited to bring this one to you today. I had a really awesome conversation with pro wrestler Marty Scurll. The villain is his character. It's an amazing character. I think you're going to love what he had to say, specifically about getting comfortable on camera, connecting with your audience. It's all stuff that's going to apply to you, and I think you're going to be shocked to learn it doesn't come natural for even people that do this for a living. It takes time, it takes practice, but you got to put yourself out there and get in the reps. So big shout out to Marty for that, and thanks to Marty also for signing my Black Plague mask, which is something he's notorious for wearing. So it turned out awesome. I'm excited to get it up on the bookshelf so we can have that as well. We did actually run like a slight audio issue on this one. Bell, one of our content managers, did a fantastic job, really, remedying the audio file. But there is like a couple moments there where it's like that feels off. It's just the nature of recording on the road, guys. You're moving an entire studio. So I apologize for that. We did our best to kind of correct some of those issues. I think you're going to love it regardless. But if you did notice that, I apologize. Unfortunately, it's not entirely perfect, but nonetheless, the content is incredible. So welcome to today's episode with pro wrestler Marty Scurll.
Marty Scurll, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Welcome to Texas, bro.
I love Texas, actually.
Do you?
I've wrestled here a lot, but I was saying to you before we started filming, I haven't really explored enough.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen looks really cool.
Dallas has an extraordinary amount of things to do. It's a definitely come back and spend the weekend situation.
I'd like to do that. It seems like a lot of people are moving to Texas now.
I don't know what it is.
And Florida.
Well, so when we moved here, people told us, like, literally, there are some people that welcome you, and some people are like, yeah, we're full.
Yeah, that's kind of how Florida is. We're like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, huh?
Well, at least here we have more space, because Florida, I feel like you guys are
pretty convenient.
And it is a peninsula, yeah.
I just read an article this morning that said MCO had 800,000 more people going through the airport in 24 than they did in 23.
Dude,
that's quite a jump, right?
That's a huge. Now, are you seeing? Because you're in Orlando, right? Are you seeing a big jump there too?
Yes,
just Florida.
Yeah, no, definitely Orlando. I think it's quite specifically Orlando. People are even too. Yeah. I think now they're realizing that there's a lot more to do there than just the parks.
Yeah,
obviously. I mean, I think it's like the number one tourist place in the which is pretty crazy.
Now, did you get hit with because you guys had a bunch of hurricanes? More St. Pete.
Yeah,
but
yeah, we were fortunate. In fact, my backyard, we took all in the furniture and everything else, and I have a sunroom and a bunch of plants in it and stuff. And I remember that night going to bed, and I was thinking, oh man, this is not going to be good.
Yeah,
and the wind woke me up at night.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, my bed's right near the window, and it was so loud, and I'd never heard anything like it. And I thought to myself, oh man, there's no chance that my plants are surviving. And sure enough, though, when I got up in the morning and went down, it was nowhere near as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a few plants have been knocked over, but I thought it was going to be destroyed. Because I had some friends that live Tampa, these places did get destroyed.
Yeah. So we had a client, same thing, completely I lost everything. But for a while they were saying they thought it was going to be so bad it was going to affect Orlando. Such an epic. And it was 2 in a row. I think the second one didn't actually do it.
Well, it's funny because it's kind of like every year there, they say there's like hurricanes happening. And pretty much every year I lived there, the first 3 years I'd go out and panic buy and get a bunch of stuff. And then nothing would happen. Then I learned that.
And that's always when you get hit, when you don't.
Well, a couple of years ago, actually, they said it, and I was like, oh, it's no problem. And I just didn't prepare at all. And then it actually was kind of serious where, like, 2 or 3 days, everything was shut. You can go outside.
Dude.
There's me trying to Uber Eats. And it's like, nope.
And I feel like when it actually happens, people lose their mind. Like, we don't know how to function without our normal. Like, we don't realize. I remember we had, so a couple years ago, you probably heard about it. In Austin, we had the snowpocalypse, right? So, like, we didn't have power for a week.
Oh.
But, dude, like, people died. I mean, it was a serious ordeal. Yeah, it was really sad. But, man, my wife and I both were like, we're never going to get caught with our pants down again. Just the basic functions that we take for granted. It was unbelievable, right? It's crazy.
Well, there is a lot of things. I think about that. This might be off topic, but I think, like, warm showers weren't invented till, like, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
That's crazy.
Like, something that we take for granted every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Twice a day, 3 times. You're just hanging out for 45 minutes in a shower.
In Florida, I take showers all the time because obviously it's really hot.
Right.
But yeah, no, the hurricane, the last one, it was really scary. And I think, and it's crazy because I think about places like Tampa, and you think, oh, what might be a cool place to live.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now you got to worry about this, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole things of insurance companies are kind of escaping Florida now as well.
We were talking about California before too, dude. That fire situation, the insurance companies, State Farm dropped a bunch of people like 2 or 3 months before. I don't know what the details are.
Well, I think it makes not justifying anything, but obviously if they think people's houses are going to burn down, they're like, we don't know. Sure.
And the state's not doing anything to prepare for those type of things. I would be like, yeah, we're not insuring that. That's crazy.
Right. But yeah, I mean, they're a business at the end of the day, I guess, right? So, but I don't know, Matt.
It's crazy.
It's been a wild few months or so here, I feel.
To put it mildly, we were talking like the last 6 months. It's like, how, dude, it's the craziest time ever. And for you, we were talking like coming from another country, seeing the diversity or the division and what's happening here. It's got to just be wild to be like, I came to the U.S. thinking, hey, it was this land of opportunity. And it's like, no, it's just a bunch of crazy people.
I don't ever want to call people crazy, but yeah, it's I don't know, like growing up as a kid, America felt like really kind of, it was like the place.
Yeah.
Because all the TV shows I watched were based in America. The music I would listen to, everything was America.
And wrestling, obviously.
Wrestling, obviously the big one. And I kind of had this sort of, not obsession, but just always as a kid, I thought, man, I need to be in America.
Yeah.
I felt like I'm not right here in the UK. And the UK is beautiful. It's lovely. And there's so many nice places. And I love London. I was back there at Christmas time and just had an amazing time. But I just think in terms of just like opportunities and just stuff to do.
Yeah.
Like I always said, I love the fact that, being in the States, it could be 4 a.m. and if you want steak and eggs, you could find
steak. 100%. Yeah. There's a Waffle House open somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be loads of stuff going on in the States, but I think that the good still outweighs the bad.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, obviously, I've been a fan of your work for some time. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the vlog. We're going to talk because what you guys do with Being Elite was just, like I told you, man, you guys sucked me back into wrestling. I was out and you brought me back in.
That's really cool.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, shout out to you guys for that. So I want to talk about that. And one of the biggest things that we see with our clients that we work with is primarily business owners. And, man, I always tell them this, but imagine you're in, the 1990s and you're trying to promote your business. How did you go about doing it? Like the fact that you can turn on a camera like we're doing now and you can reach the world for free and everybody's got a television in their pocket.
Yeah.
We don't think about it that way, right? So there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of people that they're just afraid to just put their face. They'll do static posts and shit, but to like actually do this at a stage and let people get to know you, I feel like you create connection.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about that because with what you guys do, that's your whole game as pro wrestlers is connecting with an audience. I mean, dude, you're half naked and on television, right? You are.
Yeah.
So being uncomfortable is like a big part of what you guys do. Self-promoting is what you guys do. So
especially on an independent level as well.
Yeah.
If you're not wrestling on TV or not wrestling on TV every week, it's like, how can I connect with the audience still?
Yeah.
And that's why I think in wrestling as well, I think if you're with a company and you're not being used how you would like, or you don't feel like you're being featured enough, it's like, do something about it. Do you know what I mean? Like now, nobody's got any excuses.
Yeah, 100%.
Back in the day, it was
I'm not getting TV time.
Russell. But yeah, but like back in the day, it was like Colt Cabana with his podcast, and then Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
And BT. It's been proven like time and time again.
You can get yourself over.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny, some of the stuff, like when I was young, I used to always be going out postering for wrestling shows, right?
Yeah.
Like going, to the businesses and stores, be like, can you put a poster up? Now, pretty much all the shows I do, I don't think anyone puts posters up.
No.
Like, it's kind of, it's completely changed.
Yeah.
Completely changed now. So, yeah, just the social media effect and all. Me personally, I just do Instagram and a little bit of YouTube.
Yeah.
I know there's everything now, and I kind of feel like I hear the numbers that people are doing on TikTok.
Exactly.
And like, I've got to admit, like, maybe like, not that I'm intimidated by it, but it might have got.
It's a whole different world, man.
Yeah, and I'm going like, okay,
It's a younger demographic,
It is.
too. And I know, yeah.
right. I just feel like maybe I'm just making excuses. I should definitely really go for it. But in my head, I'm like, like 2 social medias is enough. But it's really not, is it?
So YouTube and Instagram, that's your primary.
Yeah, actually, I guess I have a TikTok for my podcast, which we have done in quite a while.
Yeah.
And actually, we did some pretty good numbers on there.
That's it?
Yeah, we did.
Some of your shorts on YouTube did really, really
Yeah,
well.
there was a couple. I think so. We did it wasn't even like an amazing short. We interviewed Santino Marella, and he just told this story about how John Cena wanted to take the Cobra, right? And he wanted to sell it big and maybe like let's lay in the ring like whilst the show ends or whatever.
It's been like Cena doing.
Yeah, that reel which I put on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, like combined, did like over 10 million views or so.
That's crazy.
But it's funny because then you could put up another reel that does like 1,000.
So sometimes it makes no rhyme or reason.
Well,
you think something's going to be a banger and then it's not, right?
Yes. So I never thought about it this way before, but I have a friend who's a manager for a very sort of successful podcaster, YouTuber, and he was telling me, he said like, these reels that you make, like, you can't just post it once and expect everyone to see it. He goes, that's completely ignorant. He says you need to post them a whole bunch of times. And they say his this successful like indie viewing YouTuber, his best reel that he's ever done that had the most amount of views, it was the 4th time they posted it.
They just repurpose the same clip. Yeah, just kept posting it. Yeah.
I mean, I guess they got the space in between, but
Do you think that some of this stuff, again, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about getting comfortable on camera because I know that's a process. It doesn't just like you're not born comfortable on camera, right? I don't say so. But also too, and I remember I said this to somebody about repurposing content or saying some people, they want to promote their stuff one time and that's the only time they talk. Yeah, because here's the deal. If you and I are friends, right, and we talk, if I keep telling you the same stuff over and over again, you're like, this guy's nuts.
yeah.
Right. So it's kind of against our natural, you know what I mean? Our natural cadence. And it's like, there's different social norms when it comes to social media. Do you think it's just outside of our comfort zone in terms of like, oh my God, I already said this 12 times.
But maybe, I think in your head, you think it's like the law of diminishing returns, right?
It's possible.
People have already seen this. But the thing is, if someone's not on their phone that day for whatever particular reason, they haven't, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, like the event we're going to today, I've seen you post probably 5-6 times about it.
I've tried to. I mean, I think I've only done maybe 2, including today, like hard posts. I think actually on the thing.
Stories. Yeah.
I think that's actually good with the stories and stuff. Like you can't really over post on them, I feel.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't just live on your timeline where you posted 15 times about the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, it's the truth because I'll promote a show. And then a few weeks later, I'll have a fan saying, when you coming to Bodybuilding? I'm like, well, I am, but look on my Instagram. But
exactly.
Then, you know what I mean?
But I can't tell you how many times we post about our signing up for one of our coaching programs, right? And we'll have like super fans, people that have been in our world and worked with us forever. They're like, I didn't know you offered this. I'm like, we've only popped about it every day for the last 6 months, right? But you can't assume that people are seeing your stuff because you know it exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. And I think about that, just going back to the TikTok thing, I think, wow, there's probably this massive audience that I'm completely missing out on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it feels like all the different platforms have different types of audience.
But do you feel like, So a lot of people, this is their strategy. They call it the predominant platform, right? They like, this is where I live.
Right.
One of the arguments there is that it allows you to go deep and understand the platform. Yeah. To really build a community there. Whereas if you're doing every platform, you're not as active there. You're not as consistent, right? Have you found that to be the case where it allows you to go deep into YouTube and Instagram because you're focused on those two?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think a big part of it is, so for example, on my podcast reels, I would put the same reel on all the platforms. I think I've heard that you're not supposed to do that because every platform is different, if that makes sense. So maybe you're supposed to change it.
The expectation there.
Right. But it is interesting because I know businesses or even wrestlers that have their whole fan base on Facebook, for example, or some it's just completely YouTube.
Or LinkedIn.
Right. And so it is really interesting, I think. Yeah. Just for me, I don't know, wrestling's changed so much where you kind of feel like you need to do the social media.
Yeah.
And I know wrestlers that don't, but
how?
Not. I mean, I guess if you're signed with you're getting a weekly check, you're just kind of
Yeah.
But I just think about, here's the thing. If the fans only get to see you wrestle once every month in a 10-minute match, it's pretty hard for them to connect with you.
Okay, but let me ask you from a wrestling perspective, right? So for example, Undertaker, if he was on social media in the 90s, the mystique and the mystery surrounding that character, it kind of loses its luster a little bit.
And I actually think they say wrestling's going through a boom period again now.
I would agree.
I mean, I think WWE's is, for sure.
For sure. Well, previously, I think maybe not as much now, but when you guys were doing what you were doing, you brought about another boom, in my opinion.
I appreciate that.
That's not me just being a arc here. I actually believe that.
No, then that's humbling to hear. It's surprising the amount of fans that tell me, you got me back into wrestling. In fact, yesterday, I was dropping off a friend at the airport, and I was picking him up. But the guys that are trying to move you along?
Yeah.
The guy looks at me, he's like, "Are you Marty Scurll?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, try to talk to me." And he's like, "Oh, I wish I could get a picture." I'm like, "You can have a picture, bro." But then I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to get out."
Yeah.
And he told me that. He was like, "Yeah, I haven't watched wrestling in years. You guys got me back in." I'm like, "Whoa, it's pretty cool."
Yeah.
And again, obviously, that was all predominantly through social media. I never looked at it really myself as
I was going to say, when you guys were doing it, were you thinking about
we're going to be social media experts or anything like that?
You're
just film something, put on.
But I think there's something to that, though, right? I think some people
We weren't trying, really.
Yeah, I think some people overthink it. They're like, it has to be perfect, and I have to be funny, and I have to be this, and it's just put it out there. You know what I mean? If you're being yourself, if you're being authentic, and you're putting out something that people enjoy, I think it's going to naturally just law of attraction draw people to what you're doing.
You would hope so, and I think a lot of times it just takes a lot of consistency, doesn't it? And it just takes the right thing to take off, and that's the same in wrestling as well.
What would you say? I'm jumping all over the place here. What would you say about the consistency of the times that you post? Have you guys found? So, for example, with Being the Elite, which was, for those that don't know, that was the vlog that you were part of, that literally, guys, for those that are like, YouTube does, no, a whole wrestling promotion became of this.
Yeah.
And an industry where there's the monopoly, right? WWE, and you guys built this thing from the ground up, and AEW wouldn't exist. I don't care what anybody says. It would not exist if it weren't for BT. Period. End of story, right?
So, elite wrestling, yeah.
Oh, really? I mean, for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is how much thought and preparation, and then the timing of the show, 12 o'clock noon every Monday, East or Central Time.
Well,
right? Did that make a difference? People were they knew that that's when it was dropping.
I feel because you definitely could make an argument. I mean, I think consistency is definitely important, but I used to kind of worry about what's the best time to post whatever, or whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatnot. And I think what I've come to learn is if it's good content, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it's not, sometimes I'll do a post and it won't do as well as I would have liked. And I think, it's because I did it on the wrong day or the wrong time. It's I think if it's good, people are gonna.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, the other thing too, I think, is let's say that one doesn't work, but then 3 posts later something really resonates. People typically are going to spend a little bit of time on your profile, and then they'll go see the one that you posted that didn't do as well.
Well, I think that's how things blow up, right? They kind of compound, I guess,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And Being the Elite, honestly, it's funny because most of the time I never even really watched it. We just film it every week and then put it out there. But I mean, that was doing
Because you didn't want, like, was it weird watching yourself
maybe.
being a goofball? Because some of the stuff is hilarious, but definitely goofy.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Just what was the point I was going to make? But yeah, we were doing. I mean, how many was it? Like 200,000-300,000 a week or something, or maybe more, right?
Oh yeah, dude. Some of them, yeah. Like the big ones, right? When like you guys, the whole build up to announcing, Double or Nothing in AEW, you guys were. I don't think because your contract wasn't up, so you said goodbye because you guys all lost it at Wrestle. I think everybody put somebody else over because they knew they were leaving. They're on the way out the door, right? But outside of Tokyo Dome, right? It was like the build up. Said bye to you. We'll see you later. Whatever. But that episode, I know for a fact, did like an enormous, because dude, it was like the series, the series finale, right? It's like it's happening.
Yeah, a lot of people told me this is gonna be me putting myself over.
Please do. Shameless.
A lot, and no, it's not a knock on the other guys, but I did get quite a lot from fans. So yeah, being the Elite wasn't the same after you.
All right,
It's just cool because I the ideas.
No, I will confirm 1,000% without the villain. I promise you, it's not.
Really?
It's not. Yeah, dude, because there was just something about everything all you guys brought to that show, right? And like I told you, like when the whole Marty got a musical career contract, and like you're faking that for, what I mean? And then you're like singing, dude, hilarious.
And I just like we never even really planned that stuff. It was just silly. Like I think one YouTube video or Being the Elite video, I was just like singing to pop the guys like in the car or something, and then they were like, next thing, oh, that was pretty funny. Sing again. They just kind of build like, oh, it'd just be a text group, but it'd be like, oh, would it be funny, Marty, if like your dream was to have like a record deal or something? Like, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't really make any sense, but it's just in the
But you prolonging it and pretending that you actually had a music deal was just hilarious.
Yeah, I think honestly, so when AEW first started, I assume this was never Tony Khan's sort of view on it, but I think, at least from the way I thought and the Bucks, I think our idea was kind of like it would be this new wrestling show,
BTV on
basically Being the Elite with wrestling.
That's what I hope for. Yeah, dude.
I don't know. Like the thing is, it's like if that would work for the masses or not, I don't know. But at least that the show would be like be different.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Yes, you're right because it's going to look more polished.
Sure,
you can't. You couldn't just run that. These guys in their hotel room. But here's the deal, though. You could tell you guys are natural storytellers, and also the character development. So I didn't know who you were leading into BTE, and then all of a sudden, Marty Scurll, and I'm like, this guy's hilarious. The gimmick's awesome, right? Your theme music is. I sent it to somebody this morning. I sent it to my brother, and he's like, "Oh, that's badass." Like, well, yeah. So it introduced new characters, and it built new. And I think people miss really why men or women too, like pro wrestling.
Yep.
It's you follow characters, you see their development, stories play out, and it culminates in a match, right? Like that's why we love wrestling. And you guys, I don't think you maybe even knew what you were doing. Maybe you did, but I would get excited about the next New Japan show or the next Ring of Honor show because, for example, junior heavyweight Marty is going to be taking on Okada, and they're like, "Oh, we're so screwed." Like, and I'm like, now I have to watch this because he's going to fight Okada, who's like the ace of New Japan.
Yeah, and it's funny because the fans. This is why there's a lot of talk these days about like storytelling in wrestling.
Yeah,
but it's I always hoped that I would be famous for being a great wrestler, but obviously, I mean, hopefully that's still the case. But like, I guess a big part of my career or legacy, if we want to talk, how do you want to put it?
Yeah,
is from this, from Being the Elite.
Yeah,
and other stuff that's been out there. But the fans I know in this day and age, everyone's like, well, we know it's a work, whatever. It's like, but they still want to go along for the ride.
I think
they really do.
I think you enjoy it more.
Way more. I tell you a little story. I remember once on Being the Elite, I can't even remember why, but we had a storyline where like Hangman lost his shoes, right? Or his shoes stolen or something. So on the show, he's walking around barefoot.
Yeah.
And then one day we're doing just silly. But it's funny. One day we're doing an autograph signing and Hangman's wearing his shoes and a fan comes up like, "Oh, you're wearing his shoes." They were like disappointed, right? But he doesn't. So then Hangman took his shoes off, and from then on, like, just kept kayfabe essentially, and every autograph signing wouldn't wear his shoes. And got into it. People they want and that whole thing, that storyline with Ricardo, 205 Live or whatever, like the amount of people that would come up to me about that, and the audience still want stories, and like our stories obviously were out there and all kind of a bit tongue in cheek and everything else, and we did take it too seriously. But honestly, the fans did. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, they took it seriously. Like, they were behind it, and they were always, speculating which way the story's going to go and everything else. So, and yeah, we would, like I said, have a text group, be like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? Or wouldn't it be funny if we did that? And that's just how I went from there. And a lot of the times as well, sometimes you just start doing stuff and you wouldn't even know, like, what the ending was going to be.
Yeah.
But then the fan interaction actually kind of sometimes would help you out or kind of manipulate where it would go. For the or see how one thing gets a reaction and you're like, oh, we should go this route.
I don't think people realize, and I only know because I've never been in wrestling, so I have no idea, but I can only imagine just knowing what I do, being on camera, with my occupation. But man, you guys, live action improv, performance improv, but also, like you said, the expectation is you're a character.
Yes.
So it's not only you have to be improv actor, you have to be improv performer.
I guess so.
That's a pretty hefty. I mean, that's a tough dynamic, dude.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe I'm overcomplicating it, but it seems like it would be really challenging.
Well, the thing is, it never really was, because I think, honestly, we weren't trying to be funny. Do you know what I mean? We were just goofing off, or we're just trying to kind of pop each other. Right? I think people enjoyed that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never sort of...
It was obvious you guys were having fun.
Right, yeah. I think so. And, we just come up with silly ideas. And a lot of times, it was so different because we'd be on the road, and after the shows, a lot of the guys would go out and either eat or go party even.
Your favorite Japanese restaurant.
But most of the time, we'd be in the hotel rooms like this, and can I say that? And just filming stuff at like midnight or 1 a.m. You know what I mean? But it was important for us, like, to make sure.
But when you guys went into it, and again, I don't want to understate the significance of it for those that are business owners listening to this, like, that think that they're not going to be able to cut through the noise of competition with content. Monopolies. You guys cut through the noise. And several others that you mentioned have cut through. Zack Ryder, right? Like, there's other people that have cut through the noise, creating content when you think you can't get over without the big monopoly or compete against the monopoly. And you guys created a challenger brand through a freaking YouTube. Like, that's a huge deal, man.
I guess it is kind of crazy when you put it like that. I guess it is.
You got venture funding based off of clients that you acquired through content marketing, which is quite literally what you did. I mean, in my terms, that's what you guys... I don't think you put it that way because you're just having fun and cutting up with the boys trying to pop each other.
Yeah.
But in my world, that's exactly what happened.
I guess so. I think a lot of it was just... a lot of it is timing, obviously. And, I think that whole case was lightning in a bottle, I want to say.
Yeah.
But also, I think the stuff... I mean, it's not going to be to everyone's taste, but again, going back to, like, the quality, like, I think it was just kind of good stuff that we were putting out. So just,
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think we did see... There was definitely... Maybe if we didn't see it at the time, but there was definitely a gap in the market. You could kind of feel that there's this demand for alternative...
100%. Yeah. And the interesting thing is you and I are talking about, like, alternative media podcasts. Like, I feel like you guys hit that perfect space and time where people were looking for alternatives to things they were familiar with, right? And I think wrestling was kind of in that same... I don't want to say it was stale. I don't want to say stale. It might be too severe. But for me, I had fallen out of love with the product, and I associated it with just growing up. I'm like, what? Well, I can't have, posters on my wall of half-naked men. That kind of sucks, right? But man, when I found, I didn't realize that something else existed. And Ibushi and Cedric Alexander with the CWC class, the Cruiserweight Classic thing they did. And I think it was Brian Kendrick and Brian Danielson were the ones that were on commentary. And I'm like, wait a minute, something else exists? Now, that was within the WWE umbrella, so fair. But then I followed Ibushi back to New Japan. And then I'm literally like trying to figure out how the heck to navigate New Japan World to order a pay-per-view and convert yen to dollars or whatever, like figuring that out.
Do you think there's like an excitement of finding something, like it's almost like an excitement, like what is this whole world I don't know about? And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I would relate it back to, and I teach my clients this, but Bischoff says this as well, and I think it's super accurate. If you can't be better, be different, right?
I 100% 100% vouch for that.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's kind of been when I started thinking about wrestling like that, that's when I started to become successful.
Yeah.
Because before I came up with the whole character and stuff that I do, like I look back at myself, I used to do like high flying and stuff. But I was like,
Party Marty.
well, yeah, but like I couldn't do it as well as like a Young Bucks or an Osprey or Pete. Like, right. So then I'm like, okay, so do I want to be like the 100th best high flyer in the world? I'm like, how can I be different to everyone else? And from that moment on, I was just like, everything I do, I'm going to make sure nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because that went well, then people start being inspired by you or copying you. And it's like, okay, so now that's become a thing. So now I need to change again. So it's kind of almost like continuously evolving just to make sure that I'm different to everyone else.
When you have people come up to you, my guess that they're talking about the villain character. That'd be my guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean like fans or?
Yeah, fans. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of that.
They're like, hey, I love that 5-star classic with Osprey you had.
Sometimes you get that, but a lot of it's just like, I love your character. And I did a little promotion about a month ago where it was Black Friday sale pro wrestling tees, and I told the fans that if they bought a t-shirt, I was call them up.
Yeah.
And I did that, unfortunately, because I obviously had to call them on private. A lot of people didn't answer, which is kind of...
Well, nobody answers any. If you...
No, it was like, more people didn't answer than did. But one guy I spoke to was telling me about one of my vignettes, which I made like 10 years ago when I started the villain character. And I did like a speech or a promo in the video. He told me that like, I was going through a really tough time in my life, and like that video, like it was to my life. And I was like tearing up, dude. I was like, wow. Because again, I'm just a wrestler trying to get over. I didn't realize we could have this, effect on people.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think so. I was telling you, we're sitting here in Dallas. I'm a big Dallas Mavericks fan. Like, I've been a fan since Dirk and
Is that a football team or Superfans?
I don't know. You're married to me. You're a British guy, so I assume you didn't know. But yeah. So they traded him. They traded Luke off in the middle of the night on last Saturday. A week ago at the time of recording this, and the fans are dead. Like, there's a protest going on right now over it, literally at the...
Because they got rid of one of the pads?
Because they got rid of a generational face of the franchise type guy, right? Sure. And so a lot of people in the comments are like, guys, get a life, whatever. These are grown men that are crying about one player. It was interesting because I said to my wife, I was like, I don't know why this affects me and actually, like, pains me. Like, I feel ridiculous. You're like, I'm a grown man. Like, I want to worry about a basketball player. And she was like, because they took away your escape. And I think that's the thing that maybe you guys don't think about actively because you're busy pursuing your career, what have you, is for most people, pro wrestling is an escape for them.
Sure.
There's the fantastical elements and the storytelling, and they can kind of lose themselves in that. And so that is what you guys are providing as an escape for them. And so I understand when people say, like what that guy said to you, exactly what he's referring to, right?
Well, yeah, I think you're totally right. And when you think about it, I think with wrestling, it's all about that connection, and it's different sort of in sports, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, there are players that have amazing connection with the audience, but typically it's like the best player is going to be in the star, right?
Right.
With wrestling, it's kind of like best wrestler is subjective, right? And like our popularity comes just from a connection with the audience.
Right.
I think about...
And that's the scoreboard. It's how connected you are to that.
I mean, I think about someone like David Beckham. He was a tremendous football player, but he just really, really took off because the audience
Loved it.
Yeah, they just, he built up that etiquette with the audience. It's really interesting. Do you know what I mean? That's become like I sometimes think in my head, like, why did he become like a massive superstar over these players? There's something there. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just typically, if you can connect with one person, you can probably connect with millions.
How do you... Okay, this is actually leads to a really important topic because I feel like some people, when it comes to creating content, putting stuff out, you guys, you're putting stuff out, you're building your character, like you said, that's your scoreboard. That's how you guys know. How do you know that you're really connecting? Is it just because you're hearing the fan applause, or you're looking at the comments and what people are saying? Like how much analysis you put into that?
That's a good question. Honestly, like kind of going back to what I was saying, a lot of the great ideas that I've had were probably from fans. Do you know what I mean? Like you mentioned earlier, like the "all my friends are dead" thing. That might help. That might have come from like a tweet from a fan.
Dude, that was so hilarious.
Right.
Yeah.
So they help, but you just know when something is catching on. You can just feel it, or you get the if I'm at autograph signing and they shout something at me, you're like, oh, it's kind of clicking as well.
The one that I think of immediately that I think takes something and then he's like, I'm gonna make it work. Jericho. Yeah. Sometimes it's to the point where maybe he doesn't know where it's gonna go. Like it's wildly annoying. Like personally, the learning tree to me, I'm not here for it.
You're not a fan.
No, but that's the thing though. But then he's gonna become a heel to me.
Yeah.
Because it's not go away heat, but it's like I'm so annoyed with this, and next thing you know, I'm booing Jericho, and I'm pulled back into Jericho again, right? So I feel like sometimes just sticking with something and listening to feedback, but I feel like if you listen too much to feedback, right, and you let that dictate, you're just going to bounce all over the place and not stay steadfast with something.
Well, think about this. If that is like a negative side, I guess, of social media. You think about how big Bill Goldberg was in WCW, right? How much of a superstar he became very quickly.
Yeah.
I feel like in this day and age, it probably wouldn't happen because he would have debuted. The guys on the internet would be like, he sucks. And they're like, oh, they don't like him. So
They can't work. Yeah. Can't do work to you at a match.
Yeah, but going back to like the Jericho stuff, I mean, I think with Jericho, what I think is really cool about him is, if you notice, especially since he kind of been doing AEW, he always seems to be like in a group, right? He has his own faction, and that helps, gets the other guys over.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
People to
yeah, and he seems to put over a lot of guys. Do you know what I mean? So like, I think a lot of the criticism towards him aren't fair, but I just think from the get go, him always being like, I want people beside me, like that instantly gets those people over, and it's like Jericho, he's going to be on TV every week, so if I'm with him in a group, I'm going to be on TV every week. Maybe not wrestling, but you're still getting that screen time. So, but yeah, he's just, Jericho is just, he's the master of it all.
Jeez, he's the Madonna of wrestling.
Well, David Bowie, I think.
Yeah, David Bowie, yeah. He just continues to reinvent himself, and I respect it. He's just like, I'm sure he takes feedback, but you know what? I feel like when he knows something's getting stale, right?
Yeah.
Like he even talked about that. I can't come to AEW and be the list guy. It's like I can't be Y2J anymore.
I think that's a big part of wrestling. I think, like, for example, when Ricochet left WWE and he was going to AEW, I was thinking, man, I thought he needs to be a big heel. And I kind of come up with this whole character in my head for him. Because in my head, I was thinking, you can't just do the same thing you were doing for however long it was, 7 years in WWE. When you come here, you've got to do, again, like I said, everything goes back to just being different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that, I mentioned this I did a stream a few nights ago. Like, so with AEW, they, a lot of times they'll give licensed music to wrestlers.
Yeah.
I know this might cost a lot, but I feel like if you're going to do that, just go the whole hog. Have every single wrestler have like a famous licensed song, and that will instantly make your product seem different to the competitors. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just stuff like that. And it's like, it's small. I guess that's kind of a big deal, but just ways you can present it, just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. And sometimes actually just be different is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
I believe in that, so, and what's cool about Jericho as well, he's not afraid to try stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
1,000.
He's not afraid to fail, right? And that might kind of sound cliche, but I think that was a big thing with me. And my success in wrestling was I was never afraid. I mean, I did so many shows for so many years in front of hardly any people. And you kind of like, you spoke before about being comfortable on camera, just like you do those shows so many times, day in, day out. You kind of don't really get embarrassed or anything like that. And you're not afraid to try stuff. And like, every time I do an interview, they'll ask me, how'd you come up with the villain character?
Right.
And it wasn't like I just sat there and mapped up this whole thing. It was just trial and error, like trying stuff. Okay, this kind of worked. Okay, that doesn't really work. Let's switch it around. You know what I mean? So you got to try it. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, get stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
And they'll just do the same thing for ever and ever and ever. And nothing changes for them. Like, why is it not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot. And I'm assuming it's the same in your industry as well.
Yeah. So the big thing, I'm a pretty social person, right? So I expected I was going to just turn the camera on and just riff. And dude, the first time I record a video, and people will maybe give them some peace of mind to hear me say this, because I do present now as though I'm okay on camera, should ever. But man, I just like 2 seconds and
Oh yeah.
and it's nobody. It was just me, right? It's just literally me talking about a topic that I love, which is business and marketing.
Sure.
And dude, I was deer in headlights, you know. And then I feel like you try to overcompensate.
Yes.
So you're trying to be funny, or you're trying to be like the things you watch.
Yeah.
So I remember watching. I think it was. I don't put names out there because it actually doesn't like.
Everyone.
But there were people that were really like charismatic, right? They're like, "What's up, guys?" Yeah. And that's not who I am. No. And so I would try to do that, and then I started sounding like another one of my mentors, and so then I had to like refine my voice, and then I found my voice, but then I was kind of like too reserved, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So then I went back the other way. You know what I mean? So I feel like finding that perfect where it's like I'm being myself, I'm bringing good energy, I'm not pushing, but I'm also not too reserved. Like it takes time. Like I'm talking about years.
Yeah, it does take years, and that was ultimately again going back to, you know, how I got my break. Ultimately, I was like, okay, what can I do better than anyone else? I was like, well, I'm not the best high flyer. I've not got the best physique. I'm not the most handsome man. And I thought, well, the only thing I can do better than everyone else in this world is be the Wrestler Marty Scurll, right? So, and I think that's it. I think we have a thing in wrestling called maybe it's a term I come up with, but like promo voice. I see people doing promos. They're putting on the promo voice, and when I help people with them, I just say, you know, just speak like no one speaks like that in real life.
Nobody.
Right? Let's just speak as yourself.
Yeah.
If we need to turn it up a little bit,
Yeah.
can. But ultimately, like, I want to hear you. And people, when they watch it, they can tell what's
Yeah.
real and what's not. You know what I mean? So if you're there in front of the camera doing all the stuff, like, if that's not you, I feel like people are going to see through it.
I always tell my friends that if I had gotten into wrestling, I would have gone to New Japan and get my reps in. Yes. Different culture. Just try stuff. Especially because I feel like the post-match, like the media scrums, for lack of a press stop, some of that stuff, I feel like I watched Jack Perry go out there and come back as the scapegoat. And I feel like just completely transformed himself. But you could watch some of the things that he did, and it was just microphone,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like he kind of found his voice a little bit, or found his villain, right, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's with those, for example, in New Japan, you'd come to the back and then there's just cameras there waiting for you, and there's no takes. It's just you say stuff and
We're live, pal.
yeah, and that's it. And so that's obviously a lot different to, okay, today you've got a 60-second pre-tape where you got to try and tell a story and everything else. That's really difficult.
Would you, speaking of live, is that something you would recommend to people? Just go live and go for it? Because sometimes I think the pre-tapes will create 7 versions of it. And by the time you get to the end of it, you forget what you said in one take. Oh, did I say that again? Or now you're losing your energy. You don't have the same, right? Because you are going to fatigue.
Yeah.
Do you think that just going live and just getting your reps in is a advisable thing for people to do with?
I think so. I think anytime I give people advice on promos, and it's not like I'm the greatest promo in the world, right? I just say to them, just pretty much do this. Like, just pick up a camera and just go for doing it. Just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Like, if you're scared of the red light, just every day, just take 5 minutes. You can do it on your phone now. Just film yourself talking.
How much time do you put into going back and watching like old stuff for critique purposes, to be like, hey, this is how far I've come. Wow, I'm doing good. Or do you analyze? You said you didn't watch any of the BTE episodes. So how did you improve or reiterate when you weren't watching what you actually produced?
It's a good question. I don't typically go back. I never ever watch old matches of mine. If I have a match and I film it or someone films it, I'll probably try and watch it. But honestly, when I'm watching it, it's probably because I'm trying to like take parts of it to put on social medias. Yeah. I mean, there is still something to just not. I mean, I think most people kind of hate the sound of their own voice, right? Pretty much everyone.
Everybody.
Right?
Anybody that thinks that you're not going to hate your own content it's crazy. I hate my voice.
Yeah.
I don't know how people listen to. Like, I've heard RFK Jr. say that, but he's got the voice. But I've heard him say I can't. He apologized to people who haven't listened to him. But I'll listen to it 2 hours.
To it, right?
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
It took me some getting used to understand what he was saying. but it doesn't bother me. But dude, I cannot listen to my own episodes.
Now, loads of people like that. But yeah, I know a lot of wrestlers that can't watch themselves wrestle.
Yeah.
But going back, you said about, going to New Japan. I think that's, so if I could pat myself on the back at all, it's the fact that I've been able to, because it's very easy, I think, not very easy, but it's easier to get over in one place, like one
When we're showing all over.
one city. It's like, okay, now try and get over in completely different parts of the world, different countries, completely different audiences. And like, that's how you learn how to entertain the masses. Do you know what I mean? Like, just traveling and, like I said, completely different audience, because they all like something different. And I think that's a real sign of a true pro, someone that can get, like, if you get over in one company, that's great. But if you can get over
And you measure getting over in this day and age, followers, merch sales, applause.
I mean,
right?
that's definitely a part of it.
Into it.
It's definitely a part of it. I mean, I think a big part is, just the reaction from the audience, right? When we were rocking and rolling in Ring of Honor, it was just so blatantly obvious, because it was 95% of the audience was wearing the black and white. Yet the meet and greets would be insane. You could feel it,
I remember some episodes of ET, you guys would show the line outside around the building, right? And then you guys decide you're going to do all in, and it's like, I think you said it was over 11,000 tickets. 11,000
in 30 minutes as well.
In 30 minutes. And I think it even shut down. Well, it wasn't Ticketmaster. It was one of the not resellers, but the tickets. Yeah. Again, from you guys just creating content and building up that audience, that's crazy.
He's just giving me a memory back in my head. So obviously I come to the ring with the umbrella.
Right.
And when I was joining Bullet Club, I came up with the idea. I was like, I just put the Bullet Club logo on my umbrella.
Which
Right. So I found some
great.
So I found someone to paint my umbrella, right?
Yeah.
I did that. And then not long after that, Pro Wrestling Tees and me, we spoke about like, we should release these our umbrellas, right? So they put it all together, making these Bullet Club umbrellas, and like this date they're going to go on sale, and we crashed the website because so many people were going, what edge, and I think I actually auctioned off my Bullet Club umbrella. It sold for like, was that over $3,000 or something?
Really? For
an umbrella. And that's what I thought was so funny about the Pro Wrestling Tees thing. It's like, these people, they don't want umbrellas, do they? I mean, they're not dying for an umbrella, right? But we've made a connection now.
Exactly.
So now it's not just an umbrella, it's, a part of me, I guess.
We always tell people it's so important. Emotion is what sells, but we validate it with logic. Sell with emotion, validate with logic. So again, like, so for example, this example I give people, let's say a husband comes home and he buys something that's overly expensive, normal than a typical expense. He doesn't tell his wife how he felt at the moment he purchased. He validates it with, but it was 2 for 1. But it was 25% off. But I got this and this included with it, right? So we'll validate it with a logical,
Yeah.
Right. So, but the emotion, to your point, is what sells, because they have an emotional connection with you. So they'll spend $3,000 on an umbrella, which to anybody else is it's lunacy, right? It's crazy.
Well, that they always say that, don't they? Yeah, you're not selling products, you're selling either like that, an experience or a feeling or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot, of like how designer brands work. And to me, it's kind of, I think because I'm a businessman, I just can't understand or fathom spending whatever it is,
right,
$5,000 on a hand. It's like that to me is crazy. But is that not just like the genius of just marketing and everything?
It is. Yeah, and some of them will deliberately only release a certain amount, right? Or like, this is the fall 2025 collection. This is the only time they're ever going to make this, and people will be like, I have to have it because it says something about their status or how they present to the world or how they feel about themselves in a lot of cases, right? That's why you see a lot of gray hair guys driving Corvettes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's another thing as well. I've never been to, like, I drive a Jeep Wrangler, which I love, but I've never been into, I mean, I see like a Range Rover or a Land Rover. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, how much is it? It's like 6 figures and costs this much to repair. And I think there's better things I could do with my money. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
But people with cars, especially, or Rolexes, whatever, people are buying status essentially. Right?
Yeah, it's true. Did you know that off topic, but did you know, I don't know how many millions it was or how much time it was, but from what I heard, it was significant on both fronts. But Apple had a major dilemma when they released the MacBook that actually has the Apple logo, right? They couldn't decide if they wanted the Apple logo to be upright to you when it's closed, or if they wanted to be upright to the people that would see you using it. So if you're at a coffee shop and the Apple was upright for you, it would be upside down to everybody else. And what they found was that being an Apple user was associated with a status or an identity, and thus it made more sense that it would be upright for the viewer watching you use your Apple computer. It's pretty interesting. But apparently it was like a massive internal debate. I mean, this is all like hearsay, right? I don't know the specifics around it, but apparently there's some truth to it in that it was a huge debate over it. Even my computer, same thing. It's upright to everybody else, but it's upside down to me on the flip side of this laptop.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I wouldn't even describe myself as a fan of Apple, but I still have an iPhone, still have a MacBook. Because it's almost just like you're conditioned, right?
It's people. If you're a blue texter or a green texter, like if the messages come away, they're an Android user. Just says it's like we've literally associated our identities with that. It's crazy.
We have text groups, and there'll be like someone in there with an Android, and you're like, it's interesting, right?
Yeah,
it is.
How long do you think it was before you're like, give me a microphone, put me in front of the camera? Don't care that I'm in my trunks. Like I'm good. I can riff and feel like I can connect with people.
Well, I started wrestling really young, and honestly, I don't think I really got it till like 10 years in.
From that perspective, promo with the stick or
everything, really, everything. It didn't really click till like 10 years in. And before that, you think it is, but then you realize later on. Do you know what I mean? And I do a lot of like training seminars and teaching guys how to wrestle.
Yeah.
And I kind of just say that to them, like, guys, like, I know this sounds stupid, but this just reminds you, like, you only get out of it what you put in.
Yeah.
As like, what do they say? You do your 10,000 hours or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it sounds cliche, but it's true. Yeah. If I can't speak, I'm not very good at speaking Spanish, but if I did a little bit of Spanish every day for 10 years, by the end of it, probably going to start to get it, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's going back to what we were saying about like social media and stuff. I think people, most people don't want to try and do it for 10 years to get a break. They'll do it a little bit, nothing, it won't take off, and like, this is not worth my time.
Do you think that part of it today is, I know we talked about some cultural stuff and stuff like that before we started recording. Do you think that we live in such a microwave society? That's what I call it, microwave society, because we expect things now, right? And some of it has been Amazon. You swipe, we had a Tinder, you swipe, you have a connection. Like we're so accustomed to this like 0-click or swipe environment. What do you think we've lost when it comes to the time required to actually master something like what you're talking about? Do you think that many people that just have a wrong set of expectations where they're not patient with the process?
Yeah. I mean, I do think about that quite a lot, We were talking before about like hot showers or whatever, but everything, because like going back to, we're supposed to, in the Ice Age or whatever, we go and hunt for everything, right?
Yeah.
And
you don't do that now? Chipotle is hunting.
But now it's like everything is at the click of a finger. It's whatever
you want.
Right? Now, in this day and age, because they say about having like an obesity problem in the country. It's like, because you don't even have to leave your house to do anything, right? You can work from home. You can get any food you want.
And
anything you want. Like, so, I don't know, like, this is maybe not a great example, but I feel like as a kid, the excitement I would get by taking the train into town to go to the video store and see what wrestling videos they have.
100%.
If I had like YouTube or Peacock or whatever when I was a kid, like, game over. So there's something to that as well, I think.
Yeah. What about the comparison aspect? For example, I think a lot of people get discouraged when they're getting started or they haven't done the 10,000 hours, right? They're not the villain. They haven't taken, 20 years in now to this journey, and they're comparing themselves to you, and they're not factoring in, hey man, I haven't done my time.
Totally.
Or they feel like the gap is too far. They're never going to get to that point.
Yeah. Honestly, that's one thing I feel like I've tried to do in my whole career, just life in general. I've always tried to not play the comparison game.
But how? You're so exposed to it now. It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's another part of not spending too much time on social media, I guess.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yes, because, I mean, the people don't need me to tell them that. Obviously, people, they're not posting, they post all the highlights, right? All the best stuff.
Right.
And I think it is, social media's only been around for such a short time where, you know, we would have grown up without social media and it started to creep in, you know, later on MySpace and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do wonder how, just from a psychological standpoint, the effect it's going to have on people where social media's been their whole entire life. I remember thinking this, like, when I was young, like, now people are literally doing stuff to try and get, like, likes and, you know, validity and stuff. And, like, back then, we never did that. So it's, from a psychological standpoint, it's just completely different.
Yeah.
But the comparison stuff, I've seen people just become crippled from that person.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
And a lot of times as well, I think a lot of people as well, because of stuff like that, they find a lot of excuses and don't like to really take any accountability. I had a conversation, I'm not going to mention names, but a while ago to a friend who was a wrestler, and he said, well, I'm never going to be signed whilst this person is signed because they were like similar. I'm like, you're literally just like stopping yourself.
Yeah.
There's this idea you made up in your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think it even...
With nothing to validate that other than just assumption.
I'm like, why you just become better than him? If that was a real thing, you just become better than him.
Or different, like we said.
Different, right? But I think people, they can make excuses. And that's one of the funniest ones in wrestling. You hear a lot, like, oh, so why do you think, like, you know, you didn't make it or whatever it might be? And it's like, oh, because I didn't kiss enough ass, or I did play the politics. It's like, maybe politics is a small part of it. But again, going back to what I was saying, like, oh, if your post is good, it would do well. Kind of think the same in wrestling to a degree. Like, if you're entertaining, if you do, like, something's going to happen for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something's going to happen. Well, something you just mentioned about the comparison with, you know, they're already doing this. So in our world, right, in my world, people see a competitor and they say, oh, somebody's already doing that. And I'm like, no, but here's the thing. They validated for you that it works.
Yeah.
So if in this case, there's another wrestler that has a similar type gimmick or style, whatever, they validated that that's in demand. Somebody's willing to pay for that.
It's true.
How do you make it better or different? Because they have proven success leaves breadcrumbs, right? So they have validated that that works and somebody wants it. Same in business. Not even Apple, we're speaking about Apple, not even Apple can dominate 100% of the market. Somebody's going to be underserved. So there's always going to be Android users, or there's always going to be somebody that wants a Patriot mobile phone,
right?
Because they don't want to be tracked, or they're going to want something that's a future Web3 crypto phone. Like, there's always a new potential. And I would actually say, I think personally, the example of Apple, I think they've failed to kind of innovate in the last several years because of that, and it leaves ripe opportunity for somebody else to create a new product.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why the stock market is so kind of hard, because stuff changes so much.
Yeah.
And even though it feels like Apple is a complete dominance, I mean, I guess they kind of have the last, whatever, it's been 10, 20
For
years.
sure.
But it doesn't mean stuff like, again, we mentioned MySpace. That felt like the only thing in town.
Yeah.
Then it was Facebook. Then it was Twitter.
You would have thought Facebook was always going to be on, Snapchat was always going to be on top. Now, even Instagram kind of feels, to some degree, in comparison to TikTok, it's like, no, Instagram is the darling of everybody's eye.
And that's the thing, is like, you should never feel trapped, because things just change all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know, even like when I was a kid, I was massive into Sega. And then by the time I became a teenager, that was like done. And it's like, that seemed like the biggest thing in the world at the time.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it, really, when you've had it like that?
So we've developed something internally. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. My wife's also my business partner. You probably didn't know that.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's awesome. So we talk about shifts and trends.
Mm-hmm.
Trends sometimes are here and gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Shifts are
Right.
something new's happened. Okay, so like social media was a shift. Now platforms, there might be trends on platforms, or content styles on platforms. That's a trend. So sometimes we find that if you chase trends, it's changing the next day and it's already over. But if you're following the shift, which is like more of a macro market shift, right? So is that something that you feel like you have been mindful of like, no, this has changed and this is something different that's happening in wrestling and I'm going to get ahead of it?
Yeah.
Or do you find people get stuck changing or kind of chasing some of those trends, but missing the big picture?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think you've got to obviously be able to adapt,
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of wrestlers will hold themselves back because they'll be like, well, I don't do that, or I don't do like all the spots that like they do or whatever it might be. And for me, I was always just kind of like, I'll do what I have to do to be successful, right? So for example, PWG, which kind of almost like invented the style that everyone does now, that wasn't necessarily my style before I started wrestling for them. But when I go there, it's like, okay, I'm going to get them
What they
right. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really my style of match, but I realize this is a really great way for me to get a lot of exposure and to break out. So you adapt to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But actually, what was ironic about PWG is that everyone started doing those style of matches and everything else. And one day I was like, I wonder if I just like become like a traditional heel, it would get over. And sure enough, I was a traditional heel. I was like the only heel on the show, which means I had all the heat. It was like by far the most forgotten show. So, but yeah, going back to your question.
So I think a shift in wrestling would be you guys having to adapt to not being able to just show up on TV and expect the promotion to get you over.
Yeah.
If it's yourself over on their TV, you have to you guys are, I don't think maybe you would think about it this way, but to me, this is what it is from the outside looking in. Every day is a job interview for you guys.
Yeah.
Even if you're in the company, I mean, a bunch of people just got let go, released from their contracts today. We were talking about that. If you're not constantly getting yourself over and showing that you're a draw for their business, that's to me, that's a shift. The fact that you have to be on and promote yourself as much as you guys do, that's a massive shift in that market.
Totally. I'm always a big believer in just always like trying to over deliver as well. In the sense that if you get given a little bit, just try to make the apps, not even make the most of it, try to squeeze the life out of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's some talents that are really good for that. It's like, I don't know, a good example, a small example, when a promoter asks me to do like a promo, let's say.
Yeah.
A lot of wrestlers would just do it in their car, just, whatever. In my head, I'm like, okay, well, let's try and make the quality good. Let's try, how can I think outside the box? How can I, all this stuff and try and,
Some of the shorts you've done, they're kind of like vignettes that you're self-producing.
Right, yeah.
Dude, they're TV quality. I mean, I feel like I'm being a mark. But seriously, they're really good. They're really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's just trying to, that's the thing, you just can't rely on anyone. Like, no one's going to push you as much as you can push yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that gets kind of lost a lot of times, and people, they'll get hung up on that, and like, oh, more TV time, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's stuff that you can't control. What can you control? Let's get the ball rolling on that.
How many people do you think are, from your observation, are waiting for an opportunity versus seizing an opportunity? I know, Vince would have called that the brass ring. But do you think there's a lot of validity to that, at least what you've seen with this generation, so to speak?
I don't even necessarily know if it's this generation, but I think it's more than most, I think.
Or waiting?
Yeah.
Not going for it?
I think so. I think so.
And what does that, to you, what does that mean? Like just going for it? Like what you're talking about, just putting yourself out there, going the extra mile, putting the extra work.
Going the extra mile. I think people will do what is asked of them, or like almost like bare minimum. But they don't see it as the bare minimum though.
They think they're worth it.
They think they're doing it, and it's like, okay, but so if you're unhappy about your spot or successes in life, then you have to do something every day that helps increase your start. It can be something really small, even if it's just like working out, for example.
Yeah.
If you're doing something going back to what I was saying earlier, doing something every day, that's going to help. But like, you're in competition with everyone else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
it's true. Whether you think about it or not, it's happening. Yeah. Mark Cuban says that. He says, work like your competitor is, not sleeping and work. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, something to that effect, right? You don't think about it that way, but guys, somebody else is working on their promos. Somebody else is working on their character. Somebody, right? All the time.
Yeah. Like, I see someone like Joe Hendry, who's just happened to, again, but it's funny because people kind of think like, oh, like, it's overnight sensation.
No, dude.
But he's been doing this stuff for years.
100% he had.
And I don't know what happened because that song has been out for years.
My friends were singing it recently, and I'm like, I've known about this for 10 years.
I'm happy for Joe as well because he was always trying stuff and always working hard. A lot of those music videos he would make, she was in indie shows, he'd have an opponent and he would be making the video like that day. And that's going the extra mile.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Right. They're like, hey, there's a promo and he's making a whole music video.
Sticking with it.
Sticking
a
with
long time.
For years.
Yeah.
So
Do you think he just believed? Okay. Do you think he just believed in it that much, or do you think that that's just who he is, and so he's like, I'm riding it because that's who I am, right?
I don't know. Like, I think he actually didn't he like wrestle it like for not in the Olympics, but like at a high level. And
Oh yeah.
it seems like he did a lot. You know, he seems to have his fingers in a bunch of pies. Like, it looks like he's always trying, but it's like he dedicated his life to becoming successful at wrestling.
Yeah.
So, and again, you never know when it's going to happen, and it can always be like the timing is a big part of it. But obviously, again, he had to be. I always say that, like, you got to be in it to win it, right? You gotta make things happen from sitting at home on your couch.
What does it look like for you? Okay, so for me, right, like it's practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
I read. I'm a voracious reader. Well, I'm now Audible, so I'm a voracious listener, I guess. But I discovered a hack. This year, I was like, you know what? I want to do a book a week. That's always been a goal that I've had.
That's amazing.
But sitting down in conventional fashion, I don't have time for that.
Right.
So now I'm listening at 2.5x on Audible at the gym. Now it's a sacrifice because I like listening to I think we share that, rock and more heavy metal type stuff or whatever. But that was what I worked out to. And you get the dopamine hit, you get a good workout. But I've adapted to listening to books, and I can now knock out a book in 2 or 3 workouts.
That's great.
So that's what it looks like for me. Improvement in my space, getting ahead of the competition. It's sharpening my sword by learning my market, right? Because there's books and applications for it from everybody. What does that look like for you, though? Right? Because there's nobody writing like, here's how to be a great wrestler. Here's how to get a great promo. What does that look like for you sharpening your axe?
Well, a lot of the time, I think any opportunity I get, I would always try to think, okay, how can... So, for example, the first time I did the Tokyo Dome show, so, it's like 45,000 people and whatnot. And I was in a 4-way for the junior heavyweight title. And on the show, I think that might have been the year that Jericho wrestled Kenny.
I think it was, actually. It was. I think it was.
And there were some other big matches. And in Japan, typically, the Japanese are always more over than, the foreigners. Right. And so we're going to the show, and I thought, well, how can I... Because there's going to be a lot of people watching the show. How can I stand out from everyone else? So what can I do? Because I'm in a 4-way. They're typically not as... there's probably going to be some better matches on the show. It's typically singles matches where the guys are more over, etc. So I thought about it, and I came up with the idea of my entrance where I'd come out to the ring with these mechanical wings, right? And that was like a whole process to try and find someone to create this and everything else. And I had told the story before, but I spent more money on my entrance than I was.
You had to keep for sure?
Oh, yeah, I paid for it. Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, God. So I spent...
I mean, I knew, like, the road.
Yeah.
I knew that, but
I didn't know. They didn't even know I was doing it.
Oh, wow.
No, I just turned up. I was like, I got this... I told them about it. And they're like, oh, cool. They're like, oh, we could pop you up from stage if you like. I was like, oh, even better. So, but I spent more money than I was getting paid on that show, on that entrance.
But you use an investment?
100% investment, because after the show, everyone was talking about my entrance. For years, people were still talking about it. Fans would do fan art with me like that. I, had that, like, t-shirts, everything, because I monetized it. And again, I probably gained so many fans from that one show, because I thought, well, there's going to be a lot of people watching this show.
Yeah.
How can I do that? And I probably gained maybe, I don't know, thousands of fans just from that.
What would you say is like a return on investment for that for you at this point then? Like a 5x return on investment, or even, you can't even calculate it.
You can't calculate. Like, it's funny, one of the things you said to me, I don't know if we brought it up on camera yet, but so for example, he said, oh, that all my friends are dead was funny, right? And I think that was just a case of the next, I think it was may have been the first show after the Elite had left. Yeah. And I thought, what can I think I was in a random like 6-man tag or so. Maybe not random, but just I don't know. And I had that idea, and I was like, let's just go put it on a t-shirt. I put it on, and then I kind of blew up, and it's like,
yeah.
No one remembers the match I had. I don't remember the match I had.
But I remember.
Right, but people remember that.
Yeah.
And so, and that is the thing with wrestling. It's like we spoke about before, just how especially now there's like so much great wrestling, people they forget about that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really, if you make the fans feel something, I'm guessing it's the same when you're selling something, right?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I was with you again. I don't remember. I think we talked about it we talked a long time before and a long time during. So I'll say it in case we didn't, already say it on camera. But when I followed BTE to become AW, right, my expectation there was going to be a lot of this, like, so, but adapted, right? Adapted for television, right? Because obviously it has to be somewhat different. But man, like, the stuff you guys were doing and the fun you guys were having, and all my friends are dead, and that kind of energy, like, that storytelling was just so, I don't know, man. It was just awesome. Like, it was just so cool. I feel like it was like the soul of what led to what you guys were trying to accomplish there, which was really cool.
I appreciate that. I do think there's still room, I think, in wrestling for a wrestling show that has a different presentation.
Yeah.
Because
From the standpoint of like a TNA direction, where it's like a different, the octagon style or 6-sided ring, right? 4, or does it have to be that extensive?
I just think I'm thinking more about just the whole presentation of the TV show, because I kind of feel like most of the companies now, they all have their differences, but it's still kind of like the same kind of format, like a match, and then next an in-ring promo, and then next a backstage pre-tape, or just like that. Like,
Feels formulaic.
I think so. Like the first year, I want to say, of NWA Power, I thought that was a different presentation.
That was interesting.
I like that.
That was interesting.
Or even like Lucha Underground, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I thought it was cool, but I was just so impressed that they were presenting wrestling. It wasn't really my thing. I wasn't really into the cinematic stuff, but I was like, it's really cool they're presenting wrestling in a different way. And I think that's something that's missing now. Let's just present
100%.
all completely different.
100%. I remember I was going to say, I was going BTAW. I remember there was a point there. If you ask me over the last, AW's around for almost 6 years now, right? It'll be 6 years in October, I believe, right? It's 2019 to 2025, yeah. If you ask me what I remember, what are my favorite moments in AW history?
Yeah.
I would probably say the immediate things that come to mind are probably either backstage brawls, right? Like, so like the Cody situation, where the Inner Circle was hiding up in like a box, like a room, whatever. And Cody went up and he took the scarf and he punched the window, and then they brawled, whatever.
Remember that.
Right. So that one, some of the builds for some of the shows, like the Wardlow and MJF stuff, like that was really, really good. Adam Cole and MJF, some of that build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it's very rare I'll be like, oh, and that was a great match.
Yeah.
But the great match to me is the afterthought.
Sure.
It's the payoff for the amazing story that was told leading up to that point.
That's
right.
interesting.
And I feel like you got exactly. And I feel like that's what I said this before. I'll say it again, just in case, again, we weren't recording when I said this, but I feel like that's what you guys were able to capture, is you actually promoting, maybe unbeknownst to you, just having fun shooting the crap in your hotel room. But like, I wanted to watch your match at All In with Okada because it was like, oh, dude, you're so screwed, like that kind of thing. So, but it's all about the story and it's all about the build. And I feel like that was, to your point, that was what I would remember most in the last 5-6 years of AEW. Yes, those particular highlight moments and stories.
You're going to. I always put wrestling like this. Let's say it's not wrestling. Let's say it's a real fight or MMA.
Right.
If you had two guys and they both wear black trunks, and I'm like, do you want to watch this fight? You're not interested, right? Then I say, it's like, oh no. I do say, oh, but they're both really, really good wrestlers, really good fighters. I don't really care. Then I say, oh, backstory. This dude slept with his wife. Now they're going to fight. You're like,
look at Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Dude, if you said a 6-year-old man is fighting a 30-year-old, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
I'm not watching. I might watch because it's crazy because now I have some bad story. But to your point, I'm just, hey, there's a guy and he's fighting another guy. I'm not watching that. But they filled that whole freaking arena right up the street here.
Well, what's funny about that is I feel like I was the only person that didn't hate that fight. And I think the reason why I didn't watch it live, I watched it the next day.
Okay.
But I saw the response online. Everyone going, oh, this is terrible.
Well, the buffering, the stream was awful. That was the worst part, yeah.
But in my head, I was like, I watched it and I thought, what were people expecting, right? Tyson was in his prime 40 years ago.
Yeah, no.
Jake Paul is not like he's not like a full professional, right? So I'm like, it's a 60-year-old man with is amateur the right word? I don't want to offend him, but I'm thinking like what, like, and I've never really done boxing training before, but I did train jiu-jitsu for a long time in a boxing gym.
Yeah.
And dude, you go 30 seconds trying to box, like just doing it, you're blowing up like crazy. Then not only are you blowing like crazy, you got someone trying to punch you as hard as they can in the face. And then when Tyson, there was this clip online where they slowed it down. They're like, oh, look, Tyson didn't, he held back. I'm like, that was in round 6. Like, he's a 60-year-old man. He's done, in total, he did, was it 60 minutes, 8 2-minute rounds. I'm like, you don't. But to me, what was most impressive about that whole thing was just, wow. Like,
yes, you have that perspective.
Right.
Because you're actively doing this.
Yeah.
Similar. And I don't think most people, you see it. I always tell my wife this when I watch basketball, as I play basketball. I'm like, you don't realize how hard what he just did.
So I mean,
you guys make it look easy. You do a 60-minute Ironman, and people they have no idea what that actually takes.
Dude, and that's the thing with wrestling. I don't think the fans realize how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They really, really don't. They don't understand, the amount of stuff that you have to consider. It's like, I'm going to wrestle tonight, and I had to wake up at 4 this morning and then fly here. And then, by the time I wrestle tonight, I'm probably going to be tired. And there's, maybe, I'm not hoping this doesn't happen, but maybe the show is long and, the crowd is burnt out. There's 1,000,001 things, but wrestling is very, very difficult. I think people think it's assumed that it's easy.
No, geez, there was a fall festival, not this past fall, but the previous fall. And I don't know why they had a wrestling ring there, but they did. And I'm not at all being critical of the performers. Not trying to be mean. I'm really not. Like, I appreciate they put themselves out there, whatever. I don't want to be that guy. But man, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Like, just being able to do basic stuff.
Yeah.
Like, just run the ropes or do a hip toss or whatever. It was like the timing was off. The cadence was off. It felt clunky. It felt like it wasn't smooth. And then you go watch even the worst match in some of the major, and you're like, these guys are incredible. It's the best thing I've ever seen before. So you don't have that perspective until you do, and then you see it through a completely different lens. Whenever people live to wrestling, they lose their mind. You get to see it.
Wow, that might be one of the criticisms I have with the social media influence on wrestling.
Yeah,
so like I said, wrestling is very difficult, right? So to get really, really good at it to the point where you're known as an amazing wrestler, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many years you feel competent in the ring?
Right. But like, I think with like social media and stuff, there's been wrestlers that have gone like viral, right? Guys like, or viral, and they do it more like comedic style, right? They say like an Orange Cassidy, but he's like super tired in the ring, or like a Danhausen or whatever. I guess no, Joe Hendry. But I do see a lot of wrestlers, like younger wrestlers, and I see so many clips now online. It almost feels like, again, going back to you said, like into the trends, like it feels like so many wrestlers now are trying to go viral, and they're all doing like kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like silly, like comedy or meta comedy.
Yeah.
And because it's easier to get over, I guess, doing something silly that goes viral than it is becoming, amazing in the ring.
Right.
Does that make sense? So, that's actually going to hurt the industry, I think, to a degree, because I see so much stuff now. It was like years ago when, for example, Kenny wrestled the Don or whatever. It was like, you'd never seen anything like it. I felt like now that happens every single weekend. It's kind of got old. I'm not trying to criticize anyone.
No.
I just think, the social media element of it has almost kind of like pulled away some of the stuff that makes wrestling great. But at the same time, obviously, there's lots of people that like that kind of thing, So, but I do almost feel like that's kind of, it's to me, it's almost lazy, I think. And there's stuff that you can go to the ring and it will get a response. And that's why I'm not a big fan of people copying stuff, because it's almost like, if you come up with something, you've created that.
Yeah.
And that's like the true like form of an artist, where if you just take something from someone and do it just because it gets a pop, it's like, but you haven't like earned that pop.
But how did you go about that with, so I heard you talking about, you talked to Sean Waltman for this, X-Pac, whatever, about the finisher, because I guess he said, the Bronco Buster is really my finisher. I don't piss with that. I have to say with you, like everybody goes crazy with the figure breaking, right? But the chicken wing, that's your move. That's Bob Backlund, right? So not talking about copying people, but how do you have to just make it your own and do it a certain way?
There's a difference between copying and taking influence.
So
right, and so I obviously all parts of my wrestling is like taking influences from other wrestlers that I watched and whatnot. And the funny thing is, when I finished the chicken wing, the original idea behind that was as I turned heel, I was the villain. It's first, but I first did the character was a big heel.
Yeah.
I was like, what could be the most boring finisher I can find? I'm going to try and get it over.
That you could do it.
Yeah, and I could do it anyone. I was like, oh, the chicken wing, like, that's a pretty perfect move. I was like, but I'm going to try and get it over. That's a challenge set for me. I could have made my finish the Canadian Destroyer and, probably got a pop, the Spanish Fly, or everyone does the springboard cutters and stuff now. And again, I'm not necessarily knocking that. I just think it's it's just unoriginal, but and also when I'm taking inspiration, I can take inspiration from anything, whether it's movies or music, but like for example, I'll take from an obscure British wrestler from the 70s that nobody's heard of.
Yep.
And I'm not copying Roman Reigns who's on TV every week. Does that make sense? You got to be selective, and you take it and make it your own.
But let me push on this a little bit. People will do what you just said, right? So advice that I give to people, right? You need to have 3 to 5 brand models, meaning companies that you follow that give you inspiration.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're doing something that might be working that you can borrow. But here's what happens. Comparisonitis. Because now I just told them to go expose themselves to the things that are going to make them feel less than adequate. How do you watch but not fall into that comparisonitis, but also be able to glean some inspiration for things that you can do? Because it seems like those two would be where it seems like we're contradicting ourselves here.
Yeah.
So how do you do that without exposing yourself too much to being comparisonitis?
There's taking inspiration, and then there's taking that and putting your own spin on it. And again, going back to.
But are you mentally like, okay, I'm watching this with the right mindset. I'm not going to fall into comparisonitis. I'm not, right? Like, is there a time length of exposure that you give yourself so you're not falling into comparisonitis? Is it a mental framework that you go into? Or is it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because also obviously wrestling is competitive, I guess, and everyone's kind of competing for the same spots, I guess. But I personally never really looked at it like that. Okay, I always, again, it's going to sound like so cliche, but I always just kind of just wanted to test myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be necessarily better than everyone else. I'm just trying to be better than I was.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, this. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But no, I think everyone's paths are different, I think. And because I could sit there and be like, wow, these guys have done this and they've done that, and be like, oh, well, I wish I could do that. But I also understand that there's a lot of people that would love to be in my shoes, right?
Perspective. So mental framework is gain perspective.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also the last 5 years or so, like as I've got older, there's been so many people that I've known that have, I don't want to get like dark here, but so many people I've known that have like passed away. And that makes me think like, whoa, that really, like I have this tattoo and it kind of represents that like time is fragile. And it's like, it kind of reminds me like, you're running out of time. So I tend to not have time for the comparison.
I tried to do that. I bought I don't know if you've seen it, but they advertised it like on ads, whatever. But it's a life calendar.
Okay.
And what you do is you're supposed to fill it out every day. You check off like a day or whatever. My wife makes money because it's super morbid. It really is. But basically, they're like the average lifespan is X amount of years and X amount of days.
Yeah.
And they break it down into like however many thousands of days that is. And you literally are supposed to mark it off every day because you can visually see how much time you have left in life if you live according to the average. I stopped using it because it was super morbid.
But I think that's...
But I understand like people that want to do something like that.
And I think maybe that mindset is enough for someone to be like, you know what? Let's go. Let's do it. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's really important to look at because you can just think, have all the time in the world. I think it's very easy. It's way easier just to get stuck in your habits and patterns and not doing anything. And I tend to not moan about stuff that I know. For example, I'm not a multi-billionaire, believe it or not, but I'm not mad every day that I'm not a billionaire because I know deep down there's a lot more I could be doing. If I want to become a billionaire, like there's a lot more that I could be doing. Do you know what I mean? But so I can't be angry at the world because I don't have that. You know?
Yes.
It's down to me. He's just taking accountability, I think.
Are you a follow your passion and then it'll work out for you? Are you a find something that you can do well and then you'll fall in love and become passionate about it? Because I've heard both sides of that argument. Which way do you lean on that one?
I think follow your passion for sure.
And then
I think it's quite hard to get. You can't force yourself to be interested.
that's my argument. But I've heard people say that you become competent and then you fall in love with it and you become your passion. I've heard people say that.
So let's say I decided to start a new business where I was selling potatoes. I don't think there's any chance ever that
No, farmer, just the villain.
I told this story before, I'm sure, but when I was growing up, my parents were very much like, well, you leave school and you get a good, secure job and then you pay your bills and that's that. And they both wanted me to become a plumber when I was in school.
That's oddly specific.
I
Were they plumbers or are they just like?
No, they're just like, that's a good job,
Okay.
That's never going.
So it was random selection.
Yeah, just like, that's a secure, good job. People are always going to need plumbers and plumbers can make decent money.
Yeah.
I remember saying to them, I was like, but Mom, Dad, but I don't like plumbing. Like, what?
Say anybody?
I was like, why would I become a plumber? They're like, no, because it's a good, job, a secure job. And I'm like, well, what use is money if I'm spending my whole week doing something that I'm not passionate about, right?
How was the conversation? You told them this is what I want to do. I know, like Shawn Michaels is talking about, his parents like, you're going to college and you win a year, and it's like, this isn't for me, and then they let him pursue. Is that a similar, like, hey, you're going to be a plumber, Marty, and you're like, no, I'm going to go do this thing?
I think my parents were very much kind of like my mother was supportive in the sense that she would drive me, like, for the first 6 months of my training, she would drive me an hour and a half to go train.
Wow.
And I think that was more just, let's, keep him out of trouble or whatever. But I think she was always kind of like, oh, why don't you get a real job? That kind of thing. I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But then the more, I guess, successful I got, and, I remember like flying my mother and auntie out to New York City and all this kind of stuff. And I think after that, they kind of, we kind of get it now. But I love my mother completely. But just, I think my appetite, or just she came from a generation where people didn't really trust their dreams, right?
No, 100%.
They did it.
Yeah.
And it's the way she was brought up, right? It was
Same.
It was like, you get a job and do that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, for whatever reason, I just had like bigger plans. Do you know what I mean? And I think my mother will say that to me sometimes. She'll be like, well, but you're different. I'm like, I'm not different though. Like, I'm still just like, I was just a kid that came from a small part in Cambridgeshire in England that went to church.
Yeah.
I didn't have any, like, it wasn't like I was born into wrestling or anything else.
Right. You're not a Hart family legacy.
No, exactly. And, sometimes you say you were different. I'm like, Mum, I'm absolutely not. I'm just the same as all of you. I'm just like dedicating myself to this.
Right. Yeah.
But a different mindset. So I just knew when I was younger, I just knew that like every job I had, I just hated.
Yeah.
Even when for a while I worked in like one of my best friend's bars, right? I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. I still hated it. The idea that I had to be somewhere, like have a schedule and have like, you got to be here at this time to this time. I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
Okay, but then when you find this to the argument about passion, or find something and then become passionate about it, I think that's where you hit a nail on the head, in my opinion. I was the same way. Like, it was hard for me to do what you said, like show for night. Like, that's death. I remember I used to sit in class. I don't know if you were this way, but I used to sit in class and like figure out how much time I had left before I was done with school completely. Not just for that day, for life done, right? And so finding entrepreneurship, I think people would have called me Ben a little bit flaky, a little bit all over the place. Maybe I remember I had a boss that said once he just needs to sink his teeth into something. I didn't know what that was. I know maybe you knew earlier on that it was wrestling, but I feel like, man, those type of people, when you do, if somebody's in a situation right now, I was listening to this, if that is you, man, when you find that thing, you're the most committed and dedicated, tenacious person for that. And maybe it is because of the game perspective of not knowing what that is. And then you find the thing and you're like, oh, this is me. Like, this is for me, right?
What is the Will Smith quirk? So they're like, you can fail at what you don't like, so you might as well go for something that you do like. right? It's like so many people don't understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Like the majority.
But how many people you think don't give themselves permission to go for it, despite mom and dad not agreeing, despite it being... I mean, dude, you're talking about being a pro wrestler. I'm sure you got some laughs along the way. Oh yeah, you're not 6'5". You're not... Back then, you had to be a big guy.
Yeah, I remember my teachers telling me, "Oh, you can't be a wrestler. You're too small." I think my mother even said it to me at one point.
Yeah.
So
pushing through that had to be really tough, man.
yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it that way, and like, oh, it's going to be tough or whatnot. Because again, it was just
going for it.
well, and it also wasn't. I mean, I guess I was chasing my dreams, but I was just doing something that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I still love even just like training. Do you know what I mean? Like when I started doing that, I just loved it. I mean, I was a fan of it, and I started doing it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily like. I mean, obviously in the back of my head, it's like, okay, I'm chasing a dream, but at the same time, it's like I'm just doing what I sort of love to do.
Yeah.
Except so yeah, I think if you, again, I feel like it's pretty hard to like run any business if you're not passionate about it. You just start, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you put out a video. I wanted to ask you about this. You put out a video. I thought it was super engaging. But you were answering people's questions, and how do you put a match together? There's like 7 elements to a match. This tradition, whatever. But at the end, you were promoting like, hey, if you want to work with me as a coach, we'll review your matches over Zoom and give you whatever feedback. Can you talk about? I'm a huge advocate for coaching. I was reading a statistic the other day that shows that executive coaching has been found to lead to a 788% return on investment.
I believe it.
That is ridiculous.
I believe it.
That's crazy, right? And I think some people, we don't have mentorship and coaching. We make our lives harder than it has to be.
Oh yeah.
What has that been to you, and how has that led you to where you're at and what you've achieved, where you've got to?
I think that's kind of everything. I think when I started breaking out in the UK, so we used to have a lot of like imports come in, like staff from America, and when I got to work with more of them continuously, because I never really had like a one-on-one mentor or trainer.
Yeah.
But when you start getting around sort of the greats, it kind of escalates quickly, right?
Because you built a relationship, or were you paying for that?
No. I mean,
I'd pay you to coach me.
No, I was like wrestling that, but like sometimes they can give you like one piece of advice and just like, boom. Do you know what I mean? But again, like I keep saying, like you've got to be in it to win it. And honestly, I think the reason why being the elite, or just the elite as a whole, was so successful is that we were all just trying to be on the top of our game and pushing each other.
This luster good masterminding,
right? But like. It's like not really before, like normally groups are like all top guys, but we kind of all felt like top guys. So like I said, I always kind of put it as almost unfair to everyone else, because it was like top guys together and we all pushed each other.
Yeah.
That's like with the coaching stuff, like I offer an online service, which I do, but typically, I mean, I'm helping a lot of wrestlers quite often, whether they're in WWE or AEW or TNA, just saying, helping them out creatively. And like, honestly, I don't want to be the guy to teach you how to lock up or tie up. Like, well, I don't enjoy doing that really.
Yeah.
What I enjoy is
that's a bummer. I was going to ask you guys about it.
But like, what I enjoy is seeing a talent that I'm like, they have potential. Let me try and get the potential out of them. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of times, it's just the person to become successful, they just need to think differently. Or there'll be one thing I can say to them. And I often say that to them, or seminars, whatever I'm doing. I'll say, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, a lot. But if you can end up taking one thing away from this, it's going to really help.
And how much do you think sometimes that one thing they go off and it's like, boom, Joe Henry, it takes off, or something? I'm not saying you worked with him, but something like that.
Yeah.
One little thing can just change everything.
Funny story about that. I was watching, I think it was a TNA show with Big Damo, and Joe Hendry came out, and he had his big music video, and all the crowd was going nuts. But then Joe just kind of like walked out. I said to Damo, I go, I think we can, there needs to be a little switch here, because he had all the big video and everyone's rocking, and then he kind of walks out. I was like, he needs to add something to it. I'm not sure what it is. And I'm not sure whose idea it was. I can't remember if it was mine or Damon's, or we kind of came up with together. It's like, oh, he should maybe like do a spin to the camera instead.
That's crazy.
Right? And Damo saw Joe a few days later, suggested it to him.
Yeah.
The first time he did that spin was on when his debut at NXT. That was the first time he did it.
That was a pretty big risk. Yeah.
I guess. But then like that instantly just
Took off.
yeah.
But this is funny. Which now you think of this thing when you, right? Like when I was seeing that.
Long ago.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And just that one little. I'm really, really big, and maybe this is why I've been able to be successful in wrestling. I'm really, really big into the details.
Yeah.
And to the point where I think people get quite annoyed with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm very like,
Meticulous about it.
yes. But people are like, oh, I'm like, no, it does. Like the smallest detail can make the biggest difference. It really, really can.
Well,
right?
especially today, I was listening to Bill Maher. I forget who he was talking to. It was one of his podcasts. I think it was Matt Gates. Anyways, I'm not trying to go on political here, but it was, they were having a political conversation. But they were talking about how in today's world, they're finding that you have 8 seconds to grab people's attention. If you don't grab them in 8 seconds, they're out.
I think even that's long, is it not?
I agree. I think it's less than that. I think if you're on TikTok, it's probably like 2 seconds. Right, so maybe for a Joe Hendry, that turn is it's grabbing, right? It's grabbing you. So I think that level of being meticulous, we would call it looking at your numbers, looking at your data. Because if you're posting a bunch of shorts, and the good thing about shorts, if you're using that medium, is you get that analytical YouTube data, right? But being able to see, hey, look at the drop off, and this short that I put up, 60% of people dropped off in the first second. What am I doing? Is it bad presentation? Is it bad production? Is my audio quality bad? People they'll watch through hazy video quality, but if the microphone's bad,
Yeah.
they're out.
Yeah.
Because it's nails on a chalkboard. It's not tolerant.
It's
But like,
go on, sorry.
but no, I'm talking too much. But that level of detail sometimes, it's not that you're not doing content well. It's not that you're not presenting yourself well. You might be missing some of those little details about grabbing people.
Yeah.
And they were saying basically long form 3-hour content, they'll stick around. They'll watch a Rogan.
Yeah.
But they got to care first. Because they have a relationship. So you better capture them fast and make them care.
Yeah.
So that they're willing to listen to your longer form.
Oh, 100%.
Right? They're willing to watch a pay-per-view if you want it and wait 3 hours to see you wrestle.
And that's one thing I do preach to a lot of people. And it's kind of like me with the villain thing. It's like people see it and it's like they get it right away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether I've got the mask and that on the hat or whatever, or the umbrella, but they're like, I get what he is.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's really important. And I think maybe with Joe, like that spin to the cameras are like, oh, I guess it's something. I mean, yeah. They get it. And I always try to explain that to wrestlers. I'll say to them, like, sometimes if they're not doing well, it's because I'm like, I just don't get what you're supposed to be.
And if you don't get it.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't necessarily tell you what to do. I could give you ideas and suggestions. It's kind of up for you to kind of work it out. But, they always kind of say with wrestling, when you've got a character, obviously some characters are more developed, but like someone should be able to see you and just pretty much instantly get it. Or you should be able to sum up your character in like one little small sentence. It can't be, and I heard a story years ago about someone years and years ago, having a TNA tryout, and Bischoff asked him like, "Oh, so what's your gimmick?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm kind of like an arrogant heel." Bischoff's like, "Arrogant heel? Like, what does that mean?" Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think it's the same with the wrestling characters. That almost is like your brand, your marketing, and again, they see they get it right away. And I think if you want to be successful in business, I think that's kind of the same thing, right? Especially when you say like promoting on social media, just you need to be hooked right away to understand the amount of times that in wrestling, I don't know, maybe I've done an interview like this, maybe not, but or someone's put a promo video of me up, and like the first 4 seconds is like black screen, right? But maybe they've got sound over the top or something. And I've said to a lot of people, I've been like, "Hey guys, this is not going to do well because of this." And I think they think I'm maybe being a bit of a dick. I'm like, you're not saying it's the details, right? And then they'll be like, what difference is 4 seconds to me? Like, but it's like, no, like this is,
It matters.
It's massive. It is. It's the details. Especially, I think if you're trying to sell something or sell a brand, like you've got to be able to.
Man, we tell people all the time. It's the same concepts, man. We tell people all the time. You speak like the Bischoff, like I'm an arrogant heel. It's like, I can't tell you how many clients we work with that they're like, I'm a this. And I'm like, and there's 10 million of you.
Yes.
Why? Who? Well, how are you different? Why should I care? Because here's the deal. Somebody has probably tried that already. Let's say it's a dentist.
Yep.
What makes you different as a dentist, right? Oh, do you have better reviews? Okay, great. Like, right? Is there a different approach you take? Is there a mechanism? Are you holistic? Do you use certain products differently? Like, do you serve a certain clientele? Right? Like, if you're not finding out how you are specifically different, you just fall into the sea of saturation, and no one is going to, like, why should I take time to listen to yet another X, whatever that is? So I'm not going to, right? Unless you give me, I always tell people this, people first have to feel understood before they're willing to understand you.
Okay.
Meaning, if I'm watching The Dentist and I'm really into natural health and wellness and I don't want fluoride or whatever, right? I'm super crunchy when it comes to health. If you tell me, right, you lead with content, we use this and this and this, and therefore this and this and this because it's more health focused. I'm like, okay, you understand me. You understand what I'm looking for. Now let me learn about you. Now I'm open and willing to listen to what you have to say. And I'll watch a 30-minute video that you've done.
Right.
Because you've piqued my interest because you presented something that resonated with me. But if you just said, hey, I'm dentist so-and-so and blah, 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 and I'm located in Georgetown, Texas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you and 12 others.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it applies, I think, to both. But, man, you've got to land something. I feel like the people see that and they're like, I care about this, and it's different, and it resonates with me.
You know, it was funny. I just had a thought whilst you were saying that. So we talk about in wrestling a lot about promos, right? What is promo short for? Promotion.
It's everything's marketing.
Right.
Everything.
And so, like, anytime I do a promo, we're talking about, like, it's funny how everything is kind of related or similar. Yeah. Because with promos, I think you need to have a hook as well. So every time I do, like, if I start a promo, and then anytime I see guys doing promos, and they'll start like, my name's the villain, Marty Scurll, and on this date I'm messing, like, nobody cares. Right? Nobody cares. So typically, I'm always trying to think of a different way to start or a hook, and sometimes maybe that will be asking a question, or normally I'm trying to think of the story that I'm trying to tell, and I'll open up with some kind of, something like a question or something where I'm going to start off with this and I can pay off at the end, but this is going to be enough for people to be gripped because they don't care about the villain Marty Scurll and that until they've seen this part.
Exactly. 100%. Now, do you think about the hook before you start? Or are you like, okay, how can I hook people? Knowing the people that like me or the fans that follow me, this would be the hook for this particular piece of content? Or is it just natural and intuitive now for you?
Yeah, typically it's just, okay, you got this promo to do, what have I got to get over?
Okay.
What's the story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think once you start thinking like that, once you think, what's the story and what's my gimmick?
Yeah.
Then it's very easy. And that's why I say to a lot of my clients, I'm like, once you know what your character is, you're going to find promos so damn easy. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, that is the basis for it all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The reason why most people that aren't strong at promos, it's just because they don't know what their character is. You know what I mean? That's what you said. We were talking about earlier about, like,
You can't find your voice.
find your voice, no everything else. But typically, I'll be like, what's the kind of payoff? What's the story I want to tell? What would be an interesting way of telling that story?
But there's a thought behind it. It's not random acts of content. There's the thought behind it. It's strategy behind it.
This is like a really kind of basic, generic way. But today I've got a match. It's with a guy that I was a tag team partner with once, right? Maybe he turned deal on me or I turned deal on them. But then maybe the start of the promo is like that feeling of someone turning their back on you or whatever it might be, you know what I mean? Where you're getting them straight away, like you tell the story, that you ever, that feeling where someone's just, for everything you've done for them and they're throwing it all back in your face and they've turned on you, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They say you've changed, you think they've changed, whatever. People that can relate to that. And you go, well, that's exactly what's happened with blah, blah, blah. Someone, January 5th, this place, well, I'm just, now people are like, oh, I'm engaged.
Yeah.
Tell that little bit of the story first. I'm doing like a very basic example.
No, it's good.
But it's the same with, but any wrestling promo where it's just like, these are the dates and this is who I am. It's like, you've got to really, and that's why I think it's really frustrating for a lot of talents when they do have like a 60-second promo and they've got a lot of information to get in there. It is very difficult. And actually, what I find is a lot of times people with their like pre-tapes and stuff, they'll actually just like kind of lean into comedy just because it's like that's all they can really do to get sort of any impact out of it in the 60 seconds they have.
That makes
Quite hard to get like a really emotional or tell a really good story or hook people with 60 seconds, right? Especially when you have a lot of details to get you to style. That's very difficult. I'm sure it's the same with having commercials and everything else. What? How do we get all the details in, and how do we?
Yeah, especially if you're paying for it. So like if we run ads and running a video ad, I mean, now you're not just wasting it. Organic content's one thing,
Right.
But imagine you're paying for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And if it's not landing and you're not like you just literally piss money away. So it's got to work. And you've got to nail it. So it's tough.
There's a whole science to all that stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Like 100%. It's interesting how all the fast food restaurants all have yellow and red logos.
To grab attention. Yeah.
Right. Why does that rub?
For sure. Oh, it just captures your eye. But I mean, but if you still don't make them care, just the yellow.
Yeah.
So for example, some people put really gimmicky looking like sales pages up because they have those, color schemes and stuff like that. But they're not saying anything that matters. So it just looks gross and it doesn't do anything, right? But we're always harping on people. What you said, hook, right? Transformation. Why should I care? Counter the objections for what we're set. Because usually, right, there's going to be an objection that they have. Whether I always use the example of the gym. What are the immediate objections they're going to have? I tried this already. I failed this already. I can't stay committed. I haven't been consistent. So if the gym, let's say Orange Theory, right, they're promoting for the beginning of the year, knowing that's a time that you better have not just the hook and the core promise of what you're selling, but also you better immediately start conquering objections because they're going to tell themselves, I've done this before. I'm familiar with this already. And then you have to prove it. You have to prove those claims. How is this different?
Yeah.
How will this now work for you when everything else fails, right? So like this miracle weight loss product stuff that like the pill and then everything goes away, right? Like everybody's heard of that now, right? You've got to prove that with whatever it is you're selling. And most people, they don't even take the time to consider why their product is different. Same like wrestlers. How am I different? Oh, I don't know. What's your character? Oh, I don't know.
I ask so many times that I'll say, okay. I'm like, so what's the gimmick? And they'll kind of explain, I don't want to go, okay. So why should I book you over everyone else? How are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of people
And they don't have an answer probably.
I don't know why this came to my mind, but because I'm just trying to think of similarities between wrestling and marketing and advertising. The amount of wrestlers that they'll send me like a logo and they'll be like, what do you think of this? And it's like, they'll think it's great. And I'll be like, that sucks. And they'll say, why? I'm like, it's way too much going on in this logo, right? That's so much going on, whatever it might be. And I'll explain to them how you need to simplify stuff. And I think that's why I've always been quite a big merch seller, because it's like, let's just put it on a shirt. Again, it's like, I get it. Or it's like the logo on your shirt now. It's like very simple. The Apple logo, very simple. Nike, like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's kind of the same within wrestling as well. You've got the shirts that have done the best. You think about the Austin 316, very basic t-shirt by logo.
But still probably the best seller. Not today, but I'm saying overall, historically.
In NWO.
Yeah.
Very simple, really, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, funny story, this is kind of sidetrack. I was once looking at real estate, and it was in Florida, and the lady realized I was a wrestler. She's like, oh, she goes, do you know, I actually designed the, she's a real estate now. She's like, I designed the NW logo. I was like, the NW? She's like, yeah, the NW. I was like, oh, you mean the NWO? She's like, oh, yeah. And so she said she used to work for the Disney, like, design department or whatever.
Really?
And she would get paid, like, it was either like $100 or $200 an hour. And she just said she did the NWO logo in 2 hours. So she got paid like either $200 or $400
for the NWO logo. Does she know how big that?
I was trying to explain to her, but I think she thought I was like talking.
But has she not seen them all over the place? Like, how does she like make it and go live under a rock?
Well, it was really bizarre because I was like, this seems like a lie, but this would be a really random thing to lie.
Crazy lie.
And it's like the math did add up. I was like, okay, in Orlando, Florida, she said she worked for the Disney MGM.
Well, they were working out of the studio, yeah.
And I think I'd even heard Bishop tell a story about, I got like the creative people. This inspired it. I was explaining to her, I was like, yeah, that's like, they still sell that all the time now. It's everywhere. And she was like, oh, huh. I know. And she even called it, she was getting it wrong. She was saying the NW logo, which I thought was ridiculous.
Dude, can you imagine the amount of money if she had even a fraction of loyalties on
the set of the Yeah.
But she would be selling real estate. She'd do whatever the heck she wanted to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was obviously something in that
That's crazy.
off, right? It's
Yeah.
that is the thing.
But I think that was a reflection of culture at that time, right? More of that like renegade, rebellious, anti-hero, and that was symbolic of a sentiment. Even the design feels kind of
both
anti-establishment.
yes,
right.
and both of them it was he's
Same with DX.
Austin, wasn't it?
And Austin too.
Yeah, well, DX I guess was kind of like it was basically in the NWO.
But you can tell the climate was rebellious, renegade. Right, millennials were kind of outside of the normal. We were outside of the box. But look at all same, yeah, Austin, same vein, right? That was the shift, not the trend, but the shift there was more of an anti-establishment type of a climate, right?
And you think about this as well, like always the top stars in wrestling, I'm talking about the tippy top stars. They've always been different from each other, and when they've tried to replicate it, it's never worked. So when they had Hogan, and then they tried to make Lex Luger the next Hogan.
Or even Warrior to some degree.
Yeah,
right? Before I don't know if it was the pressure for him. It sounded like that was, and I don't know if he loved the business as much. Right?
There's a bunch of contributing factors, but
yeah,
I mean, it was I guess a similar act to Hogan's, but it's Hogan.
But definitely Luger. That was a good.
Like Luger, it's like we don't want another Hogan, but then they bring Brett in, who's completely different, completely, and then you bring Stone Cold in, who's completely different, and then you bring The Rock in, who's completely different, and then John Cena is so weird. You know what I mean? And it felt like Roman only really became the top guy when they kind of stopped pushing him as like the next big guy, the next John Cena, and he just kind of actually got into his groove and actually felt relaxed and knowing his character. But that's when he took off.
For sure.
So and that's the thing. It's hard. You can't. It's almost like you have to you want to try replicating the things that work, but at the same time do it different. So it's very
it's tough, man.
It is.
It's tough,
and that's why.
Which again goes back to the point about you just got to keep trying stuff. Got to keep
like if you try 1,000 times or you try 10 times, like you're going to give yourself more of a shot with the 1,000 chances, right?
Yeah. When I first got into learning how to do paid advertising, paid meta ads, Dallas meta ads, but back then it was just Facebook ads. I remember we hired a coach. Speaking of coaches, paid him like $20,000 for like a day or two. People are shocked when they find out how much money. Like, how do you and your wife know social marketing? I'm like, we paid for it. We invested in it, right? Same with you. Like you invested in that, and that led to a significant boost in what you're doing, right? But man, I remember like sitting there and trying to write my first ad copy. Dude, it was like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, of course.
And now, and this is not to boast, but just to show progression, right? Like I just immersed myself, and that coach was like, I've never seen somebody pick this up as fast as you're picking it up. And I don't think it's natural ability. I mean, I'm sure that always plays a factor, right? Everybody has natural inclinations. But dude, I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm going to learn, I'm trying and I'm testing and I ran so many different iterations. He's like, dude, you're moving like so fast. Like, why? Like, whoa.
But you're trying to give yourself the best chance.
But now, dude, I can look at a client that sends me ad copy, and I can literally, I'm not joking, sometimes I can literally roll over and look at it and be like, this, and this needs to be fit. Same with you in wrestling. I'm sure you can watch somebody's presentation and be like, nope, this, one tweak, it works. If you don't make that tweak, it doesn't work. Same with advertising. Sometimes it's that one line you're going to lose people.
Yeah.
And we make that tweak, and or that one word, it doesn't broaden it, right? And it's like, it works. So, man, but it took me ever, right? And that's why I say I don't want to sound boastful. I hate saying it because it sounds like I'm bragging, but it really is just, man, I busted my butt for this. I busted my butt to the point where I respect myself as a marketer, and I feel like I'm credible enough to be able to give people that advice, and I know it's going to work.
Right.
Now I'm not having I don't compare myself to other people because I feel competence leads to confidence. It just does, right? It just does. So again, man, I just feel like sometimes I think we're not patient with the process, the 10,000 hours, but you got to do it. You got to keep trying. You got to push through the noise. And eventually you arrive at a point you're like, I'm pretty good at this. And I'm pretty good at it. It just happens. Cool, man. Well, hey, I appreciate all your time. It's been really cool to connect with you and so on and so forth. My question was, I know people have been doing the hashtag We Want Marty. I participated in We Want Marty. I've tagged the Tony Khans. I've tagged the WWEs. Hopefully they saw it. What's next? I know you've been teasing 2025. You're like, hey, I'm
ready.
Ready.
Well, first of all, just this has been a pleasant experience, and it's quite interesting because I do a lot of interviews. Yeah. And this one has been very different, which has been kind of the We time my zebra. It's about this whole podcast, which is fire. But in my immediate future, obviously, today I'm here wrestling in, I had to think about it for a second, Arlington, Texas, Dallas.
Traveling a lot.
Yeah, I've been traveling a lot. Next weekend, I'm in Canada. And then the weekend after that, I'm in Qatar, which is random, you know. But it's not, I guess for mostly it was random, but my schedule this last couple of years have just been kind of going here, there, and everywhere. You know, it's been all over the place. And it's kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's just been so cool to go around and just wrestle for different audiences. And what's great is that I can wrestle in somewhere like Qatar or whatnot, and the people there will know who I am. Is they watch me on YouTube, you know, it's like, so yeah, the immediate future, I have a lot of shows and things that are coming up that I'm excited about. WrestleMania weekend, I'll be there. So all the information will be on my Instagram and stuff. But yeah, just as a future as a whole, I'm just hoping to keep making an impact and just getting myself out there. And just there seems to be a big demand for me in terms of people. They want to see me on TV. Yeah, which is what I totally understand. Because I'm not wrestling on TV this second. I kind of like to portray myself. Okay, I'm the man that you can't just see by turning on the TV. You got to come out, see me wrestle live. Yeah. But no, I'm pretty confident that will happen this year.
I love it.
So it's exciting, you know. And I try to, like I said, I just try to be as optimistic about everything as I can be. And it's easy to sometimes, when flights are delayed, or the airport loses your luggage, or whatever it is, you kind of think, well, am I? But then I just have to remember, I'm just like, okay, could be working a 9 to 5. For sure. I could be in those jobs that I had years ago that I hated. And, you know, I've been doing this now, like, over 20 years. That's awesome. And I still get to go out. And I also just feel like it's 20 years, but I feel like I'm in my prime. And I still get to go out and, entertain the masses and meet different people like yourself.
For sure.
Get to see different cities like this and get to, you know, meet and perform for different fans from all over the world. So, like, I truly, you know, like, okay, yes, I'm not headlining this year's WrestleMania, but what I get to do, I still absolutely love. And I think you can't really beat that. Yeah. But I like a few extra zeros on my back, I'm sure. But wrestling has been, for overall, you know, it has been good for me. And yeah, it's all I've ever wanted to do. So I feel very blessed just every day that I get to do it, you know. And I kind of, you know, I'm so thankful for that, you know, because I realize that there's not many people in this world that do what they love.
100%.
So,
or have the courage to go for it.
Or have the courage to go for it. So I'm just like forever grateful that I get to do that. Do you know what I mean? I'm grateful that like people even care what I have to say. They're like, oh, I want to interview you. Like that's cool. The last thing I'll say, I just think like, I've had this thought for quite a few years now where I feel like I might be wrong, but there's like two different types of people. There's people that create, people that hate. And it's been amplified by the social media and everything. Yeah.
True.
It's very easy to crap on something, to crap on someone. It's not so easy to create something.
Yeah.
If I give anyone that's watching any advice, just go out and just create.
Love it.
Doesn't matter what it is, just create.
Love it. Good advice. Dude,
thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. This is fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Do it again.
Cool.